Hello, everyone. Welcome to Divine Spiritual Connection Show. This is the place where we bring experts here to share their wisdom, their knowledge, and their experience so we can help you on your way to truly loving yourself radically and creating the life of your dreams. My name is Cynthia Isaac, and I am so excited about our awesome guest today, Veronica Monet. Hi, Veronica. How are you?
Hi, Cynthia. I'm really glad to be here.
I'm glad to have you here, and I know the audience will be as well. Veronica brings a special flavor to our session here, and I'd like to share with you a little bit about her background, and then we can get into the interview. Veronica has created the Shame Free Zone, which is a sacred space that she uses She's a sexual empowerment change agent, and she has been on CNN, Fox, Politically Incorrect, Yale, Stanford, University of California, Berkeley. These are a few of the numerous places and news that she's spoke and educational institutions that have actually hosted her. Veronica is a very forward-thinking person, and she is very clear about her insights and expertise. And as I said, she provides a sacred space for her clients. Her clients to fully realize their unique spiritual, emotional, relational, and erotic path. She is a relationship coach, a sexologist, and an anger specialist, and she'll go into that a little more deeper. She helps others own their personal empowerment. So help me join and introduce and invite and allow Veronica to share with us her experiences and her expertise.
Oh, so glad to be here, Cynthia. And I'm really glad you're putting on a summit that has so much, I sense you are really diving into the spiritual edge, and you're also taking some risks, talking about things that not everybody's talking about. So I find that is really exciting to be a part of.
Thank you for coming and being so open with us. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
So what we can do is we can start you by telling us not everything, but how you got to maybe where you are now, maybe some turns or some things that changed and happened in your life that made you who you are and allows you to be where you are and share what you're going to share with us today.
Absolutely. I've had a very interesting journey. When I share my journey, I think it probably sounds really terrible to some people. They're like, how did you live through that? But for me, I see kind of a divine wisdom in everything. And I'm actually very grateful for the things that I've been through, because now I get to help other people who are going through similar things, and people who are going through stuff that isn't nearly as serious as what I went through. But I was raised in a very conservative religious cult. It was a doomsday cult. And we were very isolationist. So my father was kind of a survivalist in some ways, and certainly the religious dogma that we were raised in kind of went in that direction too. So we're always waiting for the end times. And I didn't go to public school. I didn't keep any of the popular holidays. I had no real association with the dominant culture at all, except for television. That was my one way to kind of figure out what the rest of the world was doing. So on the one way to tell the story is that I had a really good education, even though I was homeschooled. So by the time I got to college, I had honors and entrance. I was tutoring English on campus. I graduated with a degree in psychology and a minor in business administration, and enough credits to get a sociology major too. And I did so with honors. So we tell the story that way, it sounds pretty good. Or I can tell you the other aspects of the story, which was that my father sexually abused my sister and I, and he used to physically abuse our mother. And he was a gun freak. He was a violent, mentally ill person. And this created a lot of post-traumatic stress disorder. And by the time I left home and went into college, I had a really great addiction to alcohol.
Mm.
And that eventually morphed into an addiction to cocaine. And so by the age of 25, my life had experienced something of a meltdown.
Mm.
Although I still was working up to a particular point, I used to get quite a few raises and promotions, and it was great until it wasn't. And then I totaled my car, I got a DUI, and I ended up having to get into a 12-step program to get sober. So that was when I was 25 years old, and it was
So
really still early in life.
in one way, as you were leaving home, on the outside, you were doing all the things that were expected, going to college, getting good grades, doing whatever. Then on the inside, on the other side of you, you were experiencing these addictive behaviors and people,
Yep.
and actually that came from your experience up until this point. So you were probably kind of maybe acting out what was going on the inside as well. Would that be have something
Absolutely.
to do for you? Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And I also, at the age of 12, growing up in a very religious home, yeah, it was a cult and it was an abusive cult. But I was really a devout young woman, and I read the Bible from cover to cover the year I turned 12. I was waiting for some kind of a spiritual awakening, but Cynthia, I didn't have one. I felt really turned off by the Bible. I'm not saying that the Bible doesn't work for other people, but for me, it really was a big turnoff. And
Was that, wait a minute, was that because of the way you were raised and how the Bible was being used as you saw it growing up? Was that the reason that you?
actually, it's a larger issue.
Okay, okay,
And
and then that's fine. That's
it really pertains to why I ended up going on the path that I went on.
fine. Okay.
There's a lot, since I have read, there's very few Christians that have actually read the Bible from cover to cover. So I read it all the way from the beginning to the end.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And the most of it, the Gospels are not. The Gospels kind of stand out as being very, very different, but the rest of the Bible is, it has a lot of misogyny in it, a lot of sexism towards women, and I'm pretty sex negative as well. So that didn't fit for me. It
Okay.
just didn't fit for me. So when I ended up getting clean and sober, I ended up going on this really rarefied path of sacred sexuality.
Talk about that. Tell us about that. Yes.
I've learned that if you go back far enough in time, human beings actually used sex as a doorway to the divine. It was a sacred practice where we could get closer to our spiritual core. And that really interested me. It was not anything that I'd read in the Bible. It wasn't anything I ever heard in church. And when I left home, I actually experimented. I went to a Mormon service. I went to Assembly of God. I went to Science of Mind. I was searching, did a
Yes.
lot of searching. I
Yes.
studied world religion in college, and I was just fascinated to find out that almost all of the world religions seem to have this really fraught relationship with sex. But if you go back far enough before that influence kicks in, I mean, you have to go back about 6,000 years.
Okay.
You'll find that human beings actually thought sex was a very sacred thing.
Mm.
So I started looking at it as a way to heal myself, to heal others.
Oh.
And having that incestuous past, being a rape survivor even, to use sex to heal myself. And a lot of that had to do with sacred sexual practice with myself. So
Mhm.
self-pleasuring. And that is something I help my clients with as a sexologist. I actually give them self-pleasuring exercises where they can use it like prayer.
Mhm.
So it's a very different path.
I love the fact that you're saying that that experience you had, you turned that around and used
Yeah.
sex to heal yourself.
Absolutely.
I love the fact that, and you turned it into kind of a spiritual practice. I love the fact that you were able to do that, and that was part of your healing. Yes, go on and tell us more.
Well, and so that's one of the things I do for with people that I'm working with who are also incest survivors or rape survivors. And
Mhm.
you know, at this time where we have Me Too is in full bloom here, and we have found out that we're not alone. I think a lot of us women thought, oh, it's me. I'm
Yes,
getting sexually harassed,
yes.
and it's happening to me. It must be something that I did. And then we found out, no, it's happening to all women.
And has been
And
happening for years and years. It didn't just start
oh,
happening.
oh
In
yeah,
fact, I failed to talk about the fact that you wrote two books. And the one book is the Sex Secrets of Escorts. And the second book, which you're working on right now and about to release, is the Lust, Love, and Romance in the Wake of Me Too. And that's what you're talking about right now.
yes.
That's what's going on with that. So go on and finish that.
Well, yes. So the idea that sex can hurt us and damage us when it's used as a way to dominate, to have power over, to violate. Um, i- the reaction to that has often been then to be kind of become sex phobic, or to
Mhm.
only allow one's sexuality in some very narrow um, confined ways, like it becomes
Mhm.
kind of rigid and calcified.
Mhm.
And I'm on a mission to try to free people, to get past the trauma, to get past the abuse. But the only way to do that is we have to go right into it.
To
We
dive right
can't,
into it. I got
oh
you.
yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
So I don't do any spiritual bypass. I am not
Mhm.
into trying to help people avoid their pain. I want to get my clients to go into their pain and then out the other side into immense joy.
I love that. You don't no spiritual bypass. You're hitting it head on, going into it, dealing with it, and coming out on the other side a better, freer, more loving and kind person.
Absolutely. Yeah.
In
And,
spite of
and,
whatever.
and the reason now what I'm doing is I'm starting to apply this to this Me Too moment, which I think is crucial that we start having conversations that are not gendered. Right now, we're having conversations where women are having one experience, men are having another experience. Women are working kind of with a particular dynamic, and men are working with it. And we're not talking to each other.
Mhm.
We're not understanding each other. We're not trusting each other, not communicating with each other. There's just been a way in which the whole thing has gotten very polarized. And I want to create healing between the genders. I want to
Mhm.
help us understand each other's perspective, and I predict at some point we're going to start realizing that when it comes to violating each other's boundaries and personal space, that it doesn't really have a lot to do with gender. There's a way in which we're all going to have to learn new ways of communicating and connecting in order to really respect each other.
Mhm.
And you know, ultimately, I just want to create more love in the world,
Yes.
but we have to do the heavy lifting to get there.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. I love the fact that you talked about it's both genders. It's not about one gender you're talking about. It's men and women. Before we do that, I want you to talk a little bit about the divine feminine, what that how that plays into the whole aspect of bringing together men and women and bringing
Yes,
as a whole the whole love thing. Talk a little bit about that.
absolutely. You know, Cynthia, I think that we are all kind of victims of a patriarchal system. I don't see that men are profiting from this particular structure either. I think it leads to, for men, um, uh, higher rates of alcoholism and drug addiction, higher rates of violence, shorter lifespans, more chronic disease and depression. So I don't think men are doing all that well
Exactly.
under the current
Many
system.
men are experiencing a lot of these things sexually as women too. So it isn't about just women. It's about us as a culture and the whole Me Too situation that's been
Right.
swept under the rug for so long that now has to
Oh,
be peeled back and revealed and dealt with so we can now eradicate it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, the people who say Me Too is just for women, I don't agree with them. I was so happy that Terry Crews came out and told his story. I
Yes,
thought that was a really masculine, courageous, beautiful thing that he did.
yes, yes.
And I'm hoping that at some point we'll see more men empowered to do that. I actually facilitated a support group for men about 6 months ago, and it was all about Me Too. And most of them came in to confess things that they felt like they might have violated a woman's boundaries, and they weren't real sure. There was like this gray area of confusion. But as they were exploring that, they ended up going into areas where they had themselves been either sexually or violently abused.
Mm,
And sometimes it was by a man, sometimes it was by a woman.
mm.
And so there is a way in which, regardless of our gender, we all have some level of trauma. And unfortunately, some people take their trauma and become bullies and perpetrators. That's what they do with it.
Mhm.
So if we really want to heal society, we really want to bring the genders together, I think we're going to have to look at each other's pain body. We're going to start having to pay attention to the fact that we all are suffering from trauma. Because the current system, and you want to know how this ties into the divine feminine for me, the
Yes.
current system is hierarchical and it's abusive. It's based upon bullying. And the divine feminine to me is so easy. I just look outside my window here and I see what the divine feminine looks like. It's the beauty of nature.
Mm,
Is there also death and destruction in nature? Yes, but there's some way in which it's balanced and everything's connected. And if we can start to connect with that as humans, I think we'll be a lot better off. But maybe that's a little too out there. So let's dial it in and bring it into something that's more tangible. If we are all operating from a hierarchical dominant culture where we feel like there are winners and there are losers, and we are all in it for ourselves,
mm.
that to me is not the divine feminine. The
Yeah.
divine feminine is something that we all need, regardless of what kind of genitalia we have. We all need to have permission to be more feminine, to be more nurturing, to be more loving, to value connection, and to put life over war, right?
Yes.
So, for instance, how this would look politically would take money away from the war machine and start putting it into nurturing our children and educating. Why? Because we probably would have less conflict and war if
Mhm.
we all felt like we were getting our emotional needs met. But the way that it's operating right now, we're just coming out of reactive trauma. The divine feminine to me is something that was suppressed a long time ago. When we demonized anything that was associated with our beautiful, precious planet, and
Mhm.
we decided that it's okay to rape our planet, then it's okay to rape women, and it's okay to rape our children, then that whole system needs to change.
Yes.
And I think the divine feminine can help lift all of us up and connect us to each other in a loving way.
Exactly. And then that takes us back into loving ourselves. It starts individually. It starts with yourself. It starts with it within. And as we learn to love ourselves, as we are, all of ourselves, the good, the bad, and the indifferent, the ugly, whatever, love all of ourselves. And then as we love ourselves, then we're able to love other people.
Yes,
We're able to reach
absolutely.
them and connect with them on a different place, on a different plane. And this will be a lot towards us coming together as a country, as a community, as a world, and changing what we're seeing, because we're seeing that what we see now is not working, and so
To
we've got
be,
to do something drastically different to shift it, to change it, to get it back where it should be and where it is working.
if we're connected to the divine, if we're actually spiritually based in our daily life, there's
Yes.
a way in which it excludes fear. because we're extending a certain amount of faith and trust in our connection to the divine. And so we're not coming from this reactive, fear-based place where we're trying to hurt other people before they hurt us, or defend ourselves before we get sabotaged somehow. There's more openness. There's a way in which then our joy and our creativity and our health benefit from that, as well as the whole planet. And I mean, you think about it, I think the divine feminine believes there's enough for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely.
I
When you're
do.
nurturing, when you're nurturing, and the whole thing is that you cannot have too much love. You cannot receive too much love. You cannot give too much love. Now, there's inappropriate ways of doing it. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying love itself. We are love. We were created. God is love. So there's no such thing as you having too much love, or giving too much love, or receiving too much love. The more love you give, the more love you have, the better it is, because love conquers a lot of the ills, a lot of the fears, a lot of the negative things. It's love that turns that around.
And that even goes to the way we birth our children. So that we could actually create less trauma in the act of birth. If we honored, and you think about this is where female power really gets tamped down. The medical profession, which was dominated by men, came in, and I mean, to the point where they were actually sending midwives to prison in the 80s. I mean, we've got this history of co-opting the birth process and trying to take that feminine power of initiating another life into this plane away from the feminine. And it's like, I think that's such an important power. I myself have not given birth, so I'm not saying we all need to have children here. But I am thinking that is a very feminine basic, being able to create life. And the fact that we have medicalized that, turned it into some kind of an illness, made women afraid of their own power and their ability to do this, I think is really sad. And then also made it almost impossible and illegal for women to support each other. And then what happens in that patriarchal birth system is a baby is immediately separated from its mother by cutting the umbilical cord, and whisked away to have all kinds of things done to it under bright, shiny lights instead of allowing it to latch onto the mother's breast. There's just this way in which we just keep saying, no hugging, no touching, no love, no sensuality. And there's some that say that that actually lowers the oxytocin set point, so that when we become adults, we're afraid to feel good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense, that could be the root of some of the fear that a lot of people feel on all different levels. Yeah. Veronica, you talk about the Holy Trinity.
Yes, well, that goes back to sacred sex. So let me explain what I mean when I talk about sacred sex. If I am able to move past the trauma, and so as a rape survivor and an incest survivor, believe me, I don't underestimate the level of trauma that has to be overcome to get there. And for me, in my journey, it took a lot of therapy and a lot of commitment, persistence, and practice to move into a place where, and I had to write letters and get angry and experience my rage and go into support groups where I got to face other people's perpetrators. I mean, I became an activist for rape survivors. I really have experienced all the different dimensions of that. So there's no bypassing here. It's work.
Yes.
But to get to what's the end point, I don't want to be abstinent or asexual. I want to reclaim my sexuality. And so what does it look like? For some people, that might look like monogamy. For some people, it might look like polyamory. For some people, it might look like kink. In my case, I've experienced and experimented with all those things. So as a sexologist, I don't just have knowledge up in my head. I have a lot of experiential knowledge. And my path on sacred sexuality right now today is defined by devotion to one particular partner on a long-term basis, where we work on our relationship dynamics. And our sex to me is like a prayer.
Yes.
It's a prayer where we are practicing letting go. And interesting thing about sacred sex, you use the body to transcend the body.
Mm.
So although you're engaging the pleasure centers of your physical form, if you are also learning how to breathe in a way that's tantric, there's a way in which you can raise enough Kundalini energy that you will leave your body at some point and
Mm.
you will feel merged with your lover. But I absolutely experience the presence of the divine in that as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so to me, it's like me, my lover, and the divine, my Holy Trinity.
Mm-hmm.
And that it's, well, there's no words for it, Cynthia. It's just beautiful.
So you're saying coming together the two and with the divine there becoming one and being expressed, that expression is the divine.
Yes. Yes. And some people would actually say that there's a way in which we're kind of practicing dying
Mm.
because you are leaving your body and in this ecstatic state. It's just, and then of course you come back.
That's a different expression, a different way of looking at it for sure.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wow, wow, wow. I'm still in awe of you're beginning to open up my interest in, okay, well maybe I need to find out a little more about that or research or find out more.
Uh-huh.
You're certainly spurring my interest to look more, research more, be open more to the whole idea of what this all means, changing the world, changing people, changing the way we look at the world, the way things happen in the world, the way we do things in the world.
Well, yes, yes, and Cynthia, just one postscript on the divine feminine and how this ties into sacred sex.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, it's spring in our hemisphere. In the northern hemisphere, it's spring.
Uh-huh.
There are flowers. There are bugs. There's frogs. We can hear the frogs. The frogs and the birds are singing. They're all singing mating songs.
Mm.
They are expressing their sexuality, and those flowers are actually sex organs that are being sexually pollinated by the insects.
Mm.
So every spring, we are just bathed in divine sexuality.
Mm.
Yeah.
Wow. Nature.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Wow. Wow. That's something to think about.
You may never see your garden the same way.
Wow. 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 Veronica, would you share with us? You have a gift for our audience. Well, first of all, is there anything I can't think of anything that we didn't touch on? Is there anything that we didn't touch on that you may want to share at this time before you talk about the gift?
Well, I do want to just touch a little bit on the book that I'm working on right now, Love, Lust, and Romance in the Wake of Me Too. I'm so excited about this.
Will you do us a favor and talk about the first book, why you wrote it,
sure.
with it, and then go into the second book, which you're writing right now?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Sex Secrets of Escorts. It is very much about helping to empower women to become more assertive in the bedroom, more connected to their own desire, so that they're not pandering to the male gaze or the male requests or male desires so much as they are finding their own. And that's really what I really want to empower women to get connected to themselves. I think we're living in a kind of a pornified culture right now where women are all trying to figure out what the guys want them to look like or behave like. And now, not everybody's doing that, but I sure get a lot of young and older women of all ages in my office who are trying to live up to what they saw in some porno.
Mm.
And feeling like and I was like, no, you should be coming from authentic desire from your own core.
Yes.
And you've got to be really connected to that.
Yes.
So
Yes.
in Sex Secrets of Escorts, I'm really trying to get women connected to sexual empowerment, being able to be in charge and large in their sex lives.
Mm-hmm.
and interestingly enough, the media tried to turn it into what men want. It's like, are you kidding me? That is so like not what I'm saying here.
Yes.
Yeah, I think you could still find that reference online somewhere, and it just irritates the hell out of me. So, so the new book, I am really wanting to help empower both men and women and people of all genders, because there are people who don't identify as either male or female, and I really wanted to speak to all genders, all people, as being able to move past places where they feel ashamed, and start understanding where their true desire is, and also how to talk about that and communicate about it. I think there's a way in which, because we're not able to talk about this stuff, we don't understand what impact we're having on the other person. And we don't also understand how we're behaving. So that's part of it. I did a group by the very same name, Love, Lust, and Romance, in the wake of Me Too. It was mixed gender. I had people of all genders in the group. And what I found was that we all have places in which we are tolerating touch that we don't want. And we don't know how to say no to it.
Oh, that's big.
Yeah. So I have a 5-step process for saying a no that draws people closer to you. And I really think that that's something that we need right now.
Oh, that's wonderful. So that's the gift she's got the 5-step product, 5-step 5-step process to help people say no and do it in a way that it is bringing you together rather than causing separations or anger or fear or anything like that. Is that what we're talking about here?
I've been studying a lot of Me Too moments. As near as I can tell, men and women just don't know how to say, this is what I want, this is what I don't want. They don't even know how to talk about sex with the people that they're planning on having sex with. So yeah, I mean, I don't know how you're gonna get anywhere there.
We need to talk about this. Okay.
Yeah. And I also think in feminine culture, we are so intent on keeping the connections, right? So a lot of times women, wives and girlfriends, are enduring sex that they hate.
Yeah.
I know this because they're telling me about it. I hate what we're doing. I don't like what we're doing. I try to avoid it. I try to get away from it. I don't want to do it. But they don't know how to actually say no. Now, the fear is that if I simply say no, there's nowhere to go with that. So now we don't have a connection.
Right. I'm rejected. I'm turned away. The connection is gone. I don't have this wonderful person that I'd like to have a relationship with, but because I'm standing up for myself, then
maybe he'll go have sex with somebody else instead of me. Right. Or he'll leave me, or he'll cheat on me, blah, 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 blah. So it's like,
those are real situations that people are finding themselves in and not knowing what to do. And what you're saying is that I'm giving them a way, a path, some information, some knowledge on how to handle that situation.
Absolutely. And this leads to my free gift, Cynthia, because the free gift is actually part of the book that I'm working on. Now, my book is going to be very complex and go into a lot of other areas too. But you can get this 5-step process, the 5-step process about how to say no while creating a heart connection and intimacy, and actually helping your sex life to become better by just downloading the free gift. So it's called the Exquisite Partnership Formula. And it's over on the shamefreezone.com/subscribe. You get the, it's like 10,000 words. It's a big book.
We're going to have a link for that. So if anybody's listening and they want to do that, and we will have a link for that right there when they see the interview that they can click on as well. So that's
right.
So, and let me stop, because I actually like to speak with the audience anytime we have any kind of interview. The purpose of the interviews on Divine Spiritual Connection is really for you, the audience, to really think about what is being said in these interviews. What is connecting. What are you connecting with? What can you take away? What's going to help you on your journey? What's going to help you to become the best version of yourself? So think about some of the things that Veronica and I have talked about today. Some words, some concept. The whole Me Too thing was opening up a whole lot. And I don't know how many people there that may be experiencing that and doesn't have the voice or didn't know how to bring that out. I don't know what that is. But for each person, I'm asking you to please take away something that you can put into action today that will change your life, change your direction, and make you become the better version of yourself that you'd like to be.
Right on.
Yes.
Right on.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And so Veronica has this gift for us. And as I said, we will have a link for it. And she does have a website, theshamefreezone.com. That's available as well. So everyone, I just really want you to, like I said, get a good takeaway, take action so that you can love yourself radically and create the life of your dreams. Veronica, is there anything else that you would like to leave with our audience before we wrap this?
Oh, I would just say this one thing. It absolutely, positively can be true to yourself. Have a very firm, confident no that draws people to you.
Yes.
And provides you with more intimacy, more love, more joy, and better sex. I mean, these things are not contradictory at all.
Absolutely. We don't need to be afraid of sex. We need to use sex in the way it was intended to be used.
Well, we don't have to be afraid of our healthy boundaries either.
Yeah.
We actually, if we learn how to do it in a way that creates more intimacy, we're actually going to be safer. The people we love will be safer. And I want all of us to feel safe enough to really dive into our joy.
All right. Thank you so much, Veronica, for coming and sharing with the audience. It's been a pleasure. I appreciate you. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Cynthia.
Okay. Bye now.